Hello everyone, this is Godzilla Wolf 1 with a movie review, something I've not done for a while. Now, you may note that the audio quality in this is a lot better than that Minecraft video I posted a little bit ago, which was Humans vs. Zombie, minigame. That's because my new microphones, neither of them will work with my new computer. It's stupid, I hate it, but I can't do anything about it. So until I get a new microphone for that, I'm going to record any audio recordings that I need to on my old computer, but I've got to do Minecraft on my new computer because if I tried to record with Bandicam on my old computer, it'd probably look like I'm recording on a toaster. If you know which YouTuber I'm referencing with that, please say down in the comments because I will laugh and enjoy it and probably give you a virtual cookie. Not really, I don't have virtual cookies. Those aren't a thing. I wish they were. Anyway, on to the review. Transformers 4 Age of Extinction's basic plot is this human CIA operative, or ex-CIA, it's not really clear which he is. Harold Antinger is leading this government agency called Cemetery Wind, hunting down Autobots and killing them. And he basically wants to either destroy all Transformers or at least drive them off the Earth because he blames them for the events of the Battle of Chicago at the end of Dark of the Moon. And helping him is a factionless Transformer named Lockdown, who some of you may recognize from Transformers Animated, which I believe was the first appearance of the character. And he's basically a bounty hunter. He doesn't work Autobot or Decepticon. He does whatever pays the most. And in this case, he's been hired to recapture Optimus Prime. And then we meet our human lead, which is Cade Yeager, an inventor that finds Optimus basically in stasis lock after an off-screen battle with Lockdown. Now, Cade basically has two main goals in this movie: protect his family, but also to try to restore Optimus's lost faith in humanity, which was the result of Cemetery Wind hunting down the Autobots and killing them after he spent all this time trying to foster trust with humanity. Cade is an interesting character in that we're kind of shown he's smart rather than just told he's smart. Yes, it is mentioned a few times he's an inventor, but it's the robotics he does, the fact he can understand Cybertronian technology enough to do basic repair work on Optimus, and the fact that he's able to come up with these plans and understand all the stuff that's happening that shows us he's intelligent instead of it just being said, oh, he's a brilliant inventor, and it not really necessarily being shown. Now, some people have complained that Cade is kind of a jerk. And I'm not going to say they're wrong, but I'm going to say that that's kind of a plus for the story. Hear me out. Basically, the overall moral of this is that humans are flawed, we can make mistakes, we can be bad people, but there are humans that rise to the occasion and can do great good, which are kind of the majority, at least. And that's basically what Cade is trying to convince Optimus of after Optimus lost his faith in us due to Cemetery Wind. Now, assume for a second Cade was this flawless pillar of virtue, or at least your typical action hero. That moral would not have been as resonant if he was, because normal personality is a jerk. He isn't the best person in his daily life. Even if he does care for his daughter a lot and is an overprotective father, he still threatens people with baseball bats and is defaulting on his mortgage and almost losing his house. So, if he were a pillar of virtue, if he were a genuinely, an overall good person, the good he does, the heroics he does, would not have as much weight to them, and thus the moral of the story would not have as much weight to them. So I think him being a bit of a jerk actually helped the story. And he's also a very action-oriented lead. He doesn't hide behind the Autobots. He's out there in the front doing all this stuff, fighting his own battles, protecting his daughter, and generally is an enjoyable lead, I believe. Now, Tessa, who's played by Nicholas Peltz, I'm not familiar with her work, or if I'm pronouncing her last name right. If I do, please do not lynch me. She is an interesting female lead, I feel. She's not a token damsel in distress, even if she is in distress a little more than the female protagonists of the previous two films were, I think, to a degree. She still actually tries to get out of harm's way on her own. So she's not completely helpless. She's actually trying to do stuff instead of waiting to be rescued. And I like her. I really like her interaction with Cade, and here's why. They're not completely rebellious teenager defying their father or lovey-dovey good parent little girl relationship. No, they have their good moments when they get along and their bad moments when they argue, even if the bad moments gradually become more and more prevalent, but that's because of the situation and it's organic that way. I feel overall her and Cade have a bit more of an organic relationship than a lot of movies. So I feel that middle ground really helps make their relationship feel a tad more organic. Shane Dawson, I think that's how you pronounce his name. I don't think we ever hear his last name pronounced in the film. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he was an interesting character and kind of fun to watch. He doesn't get as much character development as maybe some of the other characters do, but he still has a clear devotion to Tessa. He clearly cares about her. And him and Cade's interactions feel organic, like something that might actually happen, rather than just typical movie banter and movie conflict. I feel that some of the human relationships in this film actually did have a tad more of an organic feel to them, at least to me. And I admit that might be because of the family that I grew up in, rather than just in general. But overall, I like them. Joshua Joyce is another character who is basically this inventor, owns this big company, does a lot of robotics engineering, and is reverse engineering Transformers and actually builds artificial Transformers in the film, and is in alignment with Attinger. And I liked him. He was fun to watch, though I made it a tad annoying. But he did show morals. When Attinger's plans would kill people, he objected to it. So he was a good foil for Attinger, and they worked well off of one another. And I feel that what happens in the film would not have made much sense if they had not had that little bits of showing remorse that he did. Attinger himself, I feel, is a very nice antagonist. He's very menacing. And we did have a human antagonist in 3, but I did not feel that antagonist was really threatening. He felt more like someone that was a coward and selling out the human race just so he did not die. And he generally did not do much. Attinger is calling the shots the entire way. He's working behind the scenes, and his introduction is pretty ominous. He's just sitting in this room talking with Cemetery Wind, putting cards on the table that have pictures of Autobots on them with X's through them if they're dead. Generally has a weight to the performance that I think was a lot to do with the delivery that Kelsey Grammer, I believe is his name, gave throughout the role. And I think as a human villain goes, he was a genuine threat. He had a very menacing presence, and generally he was a good villain. Optimus in this film, I know some people don't like his redesign, but honestly I did not have a problem with it. I can understand why people do, but personally I think it looked a lot better in action than the toys led us to believe it would look. And I can understand his perspective on humanity and the feelings of bitterness and needing to regain that faith in humanity that was lost due to his friends being killed by humans. I think that was organic and carried out well throughout the film, and I feel that journey worked well. Crosshairs, I like his design, and he has a very good on-screen presence, and was fun to watch, especially during the battles. He's having the time of his life shooting bad guys. I mean, he's a fun character in that regard, but I feel he was a bit too psychotic for an Autobot. I feel they could have toned that down a tad bit. Then again, maybe he was a wrecker, and one of the few left. I don't know. That and these guys have been surviving being constantly hunted, so I wouldn't be surprised if a few of them had a few screw looses. Don't shoot me for that pun. Hound was another fun character. I loved that character. He's this big, burly, I've got tons of guns guy. I mean, he's just loaded to the teeth. his cigarette is a bullet. That is awesome. I love that character, and he had awesome fight scenes. I generally just loved Hound. I kind of want to get his toy, honestly. Drift was another fun character, and also voiced by Ken Watanabe. I think that's how you pronounce that name. Sorry if I butchered it. I generally like his work, and in this case, he did do a very good job. And Drift was a fun character to watch, and he kicked tailpipe. What more is there to say? Bumblebee, he's Bumblebee. There's really not much to talk about. He's been the most focused Autobot for 3 movies. It was actually kind of refreshing to see him out of the spotlight. Don't get me wrong, I like Bumblebee, but I feel it's kind of refreshing to focus on other characters than him and be more focused on Optimus's personal journey than Bumblebee's adventures with the human character. The Dinobots, they were awesome. Not much else to say than that. They were epic. They kick a lot of tailpipe. They generally have a good on-screen presence. I liked them. Now, they did not talk. I don't think I'm spoiling anything. But I think that makes sense, because if you remember back to Transformers 1, it was stated the Autobots and Decepticons got their ability to speak English by downloading it off the internet, essentially. The Dinobots did not have that opportunity to do so. And if you're familiar with any other media involving the Dinobots, you know their voices and their mannerisms are normally more like the Hulk than like Optimus Prime and the other Autobots. So I feel that works. I won't explain more about that, or I might explain more about it later on in the spoiler section that's going to come at the end of the video. Galvatron, I like what they did here. I won't spoil much because there are a few big reveals involving this character, but I think it was done well and took inspirations from a few other iterations of Megastron/Galvatron. I'll get more into this in the spoiler section. Lockdown stole the show. Lockdown was, of the 3 villains, I think the one with the greatest on-screen presence. He was this methodical Terminator-like bounty hunter. That's the best way to describe him. He was menacing. He was interesting in his design. I think his design could have been a little better, but the way his weapons unfolded, and yes, the gun face. You know I was going to mention the gun face. I don't think it's possible to talk about Lockdown without mentioning the gun face. But he's also got the hook for the hand that he had from Animated, and generally was probably the most memorable villain in the film franchise, if you count on-screen presence. Megatron in the first film did have a lot of on-screen presence that he kind of lost in this films afterwards. So, I think Lockdown's probably the most memorable villain in the franchise, and I like the character. He really steals the show. Now, onto the positives. This film's got beautiful visuals. Like, the first opening scene of the film is this armada of alien ships attacking prehistoric Earth, and it is breathtaking. These ships just are so coolly designed, and the attack is so well done. And Lockdown ship also steals the show. A good section of the film takes place inside the ship with the human characters, and it is scary. It's like something out of Alien, and I love that. They did such a good job with the inside of his ship, and it doesn't look like anything you'd find on Earth. And I love that. It feels like an alien ship. It does not feel like a human ship turned into a spaceship. And I love that. It's a great design. I like his ship a lot. And I also like kind of the backstory with it, but I won't spoil that. There is a backstory to his ship, but you'll have to see the film to find out about that. Optimus had a very cool scene when he's switching from his invasion mode, as the toys call it, which is the mode that Cade finds him in, to the long-nosed semi-truck that we're used to seeing him in the film franchise. And that was an epic visual. I mean, the visual was just breathtaking. It just made me think, whoa, that is awesome when I saw it. And considering this is a big-budget Michael Bay production, it's kind of hard to make you say, whoa, that is awesome, and just like stare at the screen, considering how used to the explosions we are. So I think that says a lot about the visual. The humor seemed a lot more fluid in this film. Some of you may know what I'm talking about, but some of the humor in the past two films has been groan-worthy. There's been good humor, but it seemed more forced. In this one, it felt more organic, fluid humor, and I thought that was a nice improvement over the previous two films. Now, one joke that stood out a lot was kind of a jab at the prevalence of sequels and remakes, in a remake, ironically. And I'm not going to spoil it, you're going to have to see the film. I thought all the villains were done great. They all had appropriate amount of weight to them. Their introduction scenes had just that feeling of, this guy is bad news. And they maintain that throughout the film. Galvatron maybe loses it a little, but he never stops having that weight to him. And I think that, unlike the Fallen and Megatron in the last two films, they don't go down easy. The Fallen put up a pitiful fight in the second film, though that's kind of justified because there was a reason he was running from Optimus. And I think overall this film did a lot better with the villains than basically any of the other films other than the first one, which did give Megatron a lot of pretty cool weight to him. And I think the third film was the only one that had a better villain than any of the ones in this one. And as I mentioned previously, I thought the arc with Cade and Optimus was well done and generally went well. And I loved the final battle of this film. I won't spoil much, but I think of the four films in general, this one had the best final battle. It felt more like an actual fight with something on the line, I think is the best way to put it. Oh, there was stuff on the line in the previous three films, but I feel this one had more tension to it. I feel that I was a bit more into this fight than I was the previous ones. I won't tell who the final battle was with until the spoiler section at the end of the video. But now on to the cons, the things this film did not do well. I'm not a fan of the premise. I do not like this premise. I think the premise is pretty bad, honestly. I don't like the idea that humans go after Transformers and betray them because I feel that undermines what the Autobots fought for in the first three films. I mean, we fought for humanity, we protected humanity, and then you shoot us in the back. I can see why the Autobots are disillusioned and why they don't like humanity anymore. I do like the arc that comes out of it, I just don't like the premise of it. One thing that did make it easier to swallow is, a slight spoiler here but not a big one, Attinger's lying to the White House about what Cemetery Wind is really doing. So it's not like the governments of the world have conspired against the Autobots. They actually think the Autobots are still on humanity's side. So I think that made it better to swallow, but it still was a problem. The character of Lucas really only served to establish Cade's character. He's not really memorable onto himself. I don't really remember much of anything he did. Except for one thing I won't spoil. And the climax is long. It is very long. I agree with people that say it feels long. I don't think there was much they could have cut out, except for a fight with Lockdown's ship that did seem to drag on for a long time. But I don't really think there was much they could have cut out, but it still felt very, very long. And some of the slow-mo felt very forced. Like, very. Especially, I think, the death of one character I will not tell about didn't really need the slow-mo at all. And, yeah, the slow-mo was not done very good at all. I think the best slow-mo in the film, and they did do it in some places good, was during Crosshair fighting what were Lockdown's drones while flying through Chicago. Now, the spoiler-free conclusion to all this. Overall, I personally think Age of Extinction is probably one of the stronger entries in the franchise movies. And as a movie, while it is flawed, and I do not think it's the best film, and I do not like the premise, even if they did it better than I thought they would, I still think it's worth a watch. And I think it's a good film overall. Just a few nickling complaints that keep me from giving it a 5 out of 5. I give it a 4 out of 5. And if you do not want spoilers, I would suggest stopping right about now. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe, the normal stuff. If you do not want spoilers, close the video right now, enjoy the movie, come back and watch the spoiler part after you've seen it. The final battle, the reason I think it's the best out of all of them was it felt like an actual fight. Lockdown put up a huge fight. It was not just throw axe at head, he's dead. It was not a 30-second fight that we don't see much of. We see the fight, and it's also got the climax with Cade's fight with Attinger. So overall, I felt the fight, which isn't just Optimus versus Lockdown, it's Optimus, Bumblebee, and Cade, and basically all the human characters versus Lockdown. And Lockdown's death has a heck of a lot of impact to it. Something I noticed was this film had a lot to do with animated, didn't it? I mean, we've got Lockdown, obviously, but Galvatron's resurrection was basically Megatron tricking Joyce's company into building a new body for him, where they were experimenting on his severed head. I think that was taken directly from animated, because if you've watched animated, that's exactly what Megatron does there to resurrect himself. So I think they took a lot from animated in this film. And also, Galvatron does get a nice moment where he says, I don't know if that originated in animated, or if he said that in the old film where he said, Decepticons, transform and rise up. But it was so fun to see him use that line. Okay, that's my spoilers on this film. Overall, I like the film, give it a 4 out of 5, and I enjoyed it.